Hi everyone, today me, Sanskruti Chavanke and my teammates Darshit Rai and Aman Ostwal are going to present on topic Principal Component Analysis by Jonathan Schlentz. So these are the points we are going to discuss today. First is what is PCA, the introduction of PCA, then where is PCA used, understanding one example of PCA, then implementing a better way to look at the data. We have taken two ways, which is change of basis and naive Bayes. Then understanding covariance matrix. Next is diagonalization of covariance matrix, understanding how PCA works for diagonalization, solving PCA using eigenvector decomposition, PCA with linear algebra, Python code for implementation of PCA, benefits of using PCA. So what is PCA? PCA is Principal Component Analysis, which is a technique used to simplify large datasets by finding a smaller number of features that captures most of the important information. In simple terms, it's like creating a summary of the data that focuses on the key variations. PCA achieves this by transforming the data into new coordinate system where the most important features are highlighted. These new features are called principal components. PCA relies on mathematical concepts like eigenvectors and eigenvalues. Eigenvectors indicates the directions of greatest variation in the data, while eigenvalues quantify how much variation each direction captures. PCA prioritizes this direction, retaining the ones with the highest eigenvalues, which is most variation, as the principal components. So we'll see the uses of PCA now. Quality control and manufacturing. In manufacturing industries, PCA plays a crucial role in ensuring product quality and monitoring processes. By analyzing data collected from sensors and measurement instruments, PCA can identify patterns or irregularities in production processes, thereby enhancing product quality and minimizing defects. Second is recommendation system. Recommender system, commonly employed by streaming platforms and online retailers, handle vast amount of data concerning user preferences and item characteristics. PCA can effectively reduce the dimensionality of the data, facilitating the identification of patterns and the provision of relevant recommendation or to users. Third is natural language processing. In NLP applications such as sentiment analysis or topic modeling, text data is often represented using high dimensional feature vectors. PCA proves invaluable in reducing the dimensionality of such a data, simplifying the training of machine learning models, and enhancing their performance. Fourth is climate science and environmental science. PCA serves a vital role in climate science by analyzing extensive datasets containing environmental variables such as temperature, perception, and atmospheric pressure. It aids in identifying significant climate patterns, elucidating their interrelationships, and making predictions regarding future climate trends. So now we will understand the toy example which is given in the research paper. So we are trying to understand how a ball attached to a spring moves. We want to figure this out by recording its position using three cameras. However, we are not sure which directions are important, so we record in three different angles. The problem here is this creates a lot of confusing data. Think of it like taking a picture of bouncing ball from different angles but not knowing which angle shows the most important information about how the ball is moving. Additionally, there's noise like disturbance or imperfect camera recordings, making the data even more confusing. The goal is to use a technique like PCA to simplify this maze of data, and find the most critical information. PCA help us identify the key patterns or directions in the data, sort out the noise, and ultimately understand the underlying dynamics of the ball and spring system more clearly. It's like using a smart tool to untangle a complex puzzle and reveal the hidden simplicity within. Now, Aman Ostwal will take over.
Now let's have a look at how to implement a better way to look at the data. There are two ways, naive basis and change of basis. So now first we will explore naive basis. Each sample in an experiment captures data from multiple measurements at a specific time. An orthonormal basis serves as a reference grid for organizing and measuring the data. The naive basis is chosen based on how the data was collected, acting as the initial framework for representing data points. Orthonormal basis vectors are perpendicular to each other and typically unit length. In our example, the naive basis might correspond to the x and y axis of a camera, reflecting how the data was gathered. The naive basis for camera A could be represented as a 1001 in a matrix known as the identity matrix. Change of basis. Changing the basis involves re-expressing data in a new set of directions, potentially revealing hidden patterns. Linear transformation combines original basis vectors to represent data optimally. The original data set X is represented as an M into N matrix where M is the number of measurements and N is the number of samples. Matrix Y, related to X through a linear transformation represented by matrix P, captures the change of basis Px equal to Y. P acts as a transformation matrix reshaping data into a new representation. Geometrically, P can be visualized as a combination of rotation and stretching operations. The rows of P serve as a fresh set of basis vectors for expressing data in different coordination system. Each column of Y is a projection onto the basis defined by the row of P with coefficients obtained by projecting corresponding columns of X onto P. Now let's understand covariance matrix. The covariance matrix quantifies relationships and redundancies within set of measurements. Covariance measurements sorry, covariance measures the linear relationship between two sets of measurements. A positive covariance indicates a positive correlation, while a negative covariance signifies a negative correlation. The magnitude of covariance reflects the degree of redundancy between variables. For higher dimensions, multiple sets of measurements x1, x2, x3 up to xm can be organized into matrix X, where each row represents a measurement type and each column represents a trial or sample. The covariance matrix, denoted as Cx, is computed by multiplying x by transpose and dividing by the number of samples. Each element in Cx represents the covariance between different measurement types. What can we infer from covariance matrix? Cx is symmetrical, meaning it's a square symmetric matrix and is equal to its transpose. Diagonal elements of Cx represents variance of individual measurements types. Off-diagonal elements represent covariance between pairs of measurements. Large off-diagonal values in Cx indicate high redundancy between measurement types. Large diagonal values suggest interesting structure in the data. Now let's have a look at diagonalization of covariance matrix. The ideal scenario involves a covariance matrix Cy with zero of diagonal terms indicating a diagonal matrix. A diagonal covariance matrix signifies that the variables in the transformed data Y are decorrelated, meaning there is no redundancy between variables. Zero of diagonal terms imply that each variable in Y contributes unique information without being influenced by other variables. Lower covariance indicates less redundancy in the data, making the transformed data more informative and easier to analyze. Optimized covariance matrix Cy. A diagonal covariance matrix implies no redundancy between variables, leading to a more effective representation of the data. In the transformed data Y, variable with higher variance captures more significant variations in the data. The diagonal elements of Cy are ranked in descending order, representing the variables of each variable in Y. High variances prioritize the most informative direction in the data, allowing for a more focused analysis of the dataset. Now let's understand how PCA works for diagonalization. All basis vectors used in PCA for transformation are orthonormal, meaning they are perpendicular to each other and have a unit length. PCA acts like a rotation in higher dimensions where the orthonormal basis vectors become the new axis aligned with the direction of maximum variances. Steps or steps of PCA for diagonalization. Start with the original data X. Find the direction in the data space that captures the most variance. This becomes the first principal component P1. Search for another direction with the highest variance while ensuring it is perpendicular to P1. This becomes the second principal component P2. Repeat step 3 until you have as many principal components PS as the original number of variables M. Each principal component captures a distinct direction of maximum variance in the data, ensuring that the transformed data is more efficiently represented with reduced redundancy. The resulting covariance matrix of the transformed data will be diagonal, indicating that variables are decorrelated and ranked in the descending order of variance, which facilitates easy analysis and interpretation of the dataset.
So now I'll take on over from here and we'll see how to solve PCA using eigenvector decomposition. What we understand from the paper is that a transformation matrix P that transforms the data X into new space Y, where the covariance matrix CY becomes the diagonal. The rows of P represent the principal components and the new informative directions in the data. So let's get through the steps of eigenvalue decomposition. What we'll do is we'll start with a transformation matrix P that helps us change our data X into a new space Y. In this new space Y, the covariance matrix CY becomes diagonal, which means the variables in Y are not correlated with each other. So we express the covariance matrix CY in terms of the unknown transformation matrix P. This expression is CY is equal to PCX P raised to T, where CX is the covariance matrix of the original data X. The covariance matrix tells us how much two variables in our data change together or what is the variation between them. We calculate the covariance between every pair of variable in X to build CY. This will give us a new data of variance. And now we'll find a special set of eigenvectors and eigenvalues for covariance matrix CX. These eigenvectors are principal components of our data, representing information directions. We choose the transformation matrix P so that each row represents eigenvector of Cx. This choice ensures that Cy becomes diagonal matrix D when we apply P to Cy. By substituting the chosen P into Cy is equal to Pcx P raised to T, we show that Cy becomes a diagonal matrix D. This means that the variable in the transform space Y are not correlated, and we achieve our goal of decorrelating the data. Each diagonal value in Cy represents the variance of X along the corresponding principal components of P1. This variance tells us how much the data spreads out along the each informative direction. Now let's see how linear algebra and our course DSCI-501 has clarified and has been useful in implementing principal component analysis. An orthogonal matrix A has a property that its transpose is also an inverse. So we can say that transpose of A is equal to inverse of A. Next, for any matrix A raised to T into A and A into A raised to T are symmetric. A matrix is symmetric if and only if it is orthogonally diagonalizable. This means that for a symmetric matrix A, there exists an orthogonal matrix E and a diagonal matrix D such that A is equal to E dE raised to T. A symmetric matrix is diagonalized by a matrix of its orthonormal eigenvectors. This property is fundamental in PCA as it enables us to find principal component of data by diagonalizing the covariance matrix. For any arbitrary matrix X, the symmetric matrix X raised to T into X has orthonormal eigenvectors V cap 1, V cap 2 and V cap n, and associated eigenvalues lambda 1, lambda 2 till lambda n. These eigenvectors form an orthogonal basis and the eigenvalues represent the variance along each eigenvector direction. So in conclusion, we can say that linear algebra concepts such as orthogonal matrix, symmetry, eigenvectors and eigenvalue are fundamental tools used in implementing PCA. They allow us to transform into data into a new basis and extract meaningful features and reduce dimensionality while preserving important information about the data's variability. Now let's look at how to implement the code for PCA in Python. So we have imported NumPy library, which is numerical Python, to perform numerical computation efficiently. Now we will define PCA1 function, which takes a data matrix as input and returns the projected data, which is signals, principal components PC and variances V. Then we calculate subtracted mean Mn along each dimensions and subtract it from the data matrix to center the data around 0. After that, we calculate covariance matrix. Then we compute the covariance matrix using the centered data. Using NumPy linear algebra function, we find the eigenvectors PC and eigenvalues V of the covariance matrix. Then in second last step, we saw the eigenvalues in decreasing order and rearrange the corresponding eigenvectors accordingly to obtain the principal components PC and variance V. And finally, we project the original data on principal components to obtain the projected data. Now let's look at how PCA has been useful in defining large data set into smaller data set and has been useful in analyzing the data. So by compressing the data into fewer important features, PCA makes it easier to analyze and visualize complex data sets. Many machine learning algorithms struggle with high dimension data. PCA helps by reducing the dimensions, making it easier for these algorithms to learn effectively from the data. Sometimes dataset can have irrelevant information called noise. PCA can help us filter out these noise by focusing on important data and core variations in the data. So PCA is a powerful tool for dimensionality reduction and data analysis. It helps us to see bigger picture in complex datasets and prepare our data for further exploration on or machine learning tasks. Now let's look at the graph and the PCA process overview, how it works. So the first step is to calculate the mean vector of the input data x, which represents the centroid of average point of the data. Then in the second picture, the mean vector is subtracted from each data point in x, resulting in the mean centered of the data x. The third step is the covariance matrix S is calculated from the mean centered X. The covariance matrix captures the variances and correlations between the dimensions of data. The eigenvalues and the eigenvectors of covariance matrix X S are computed. The eigenvectors U1, U2, Un represent the principal components and the corresponding eigenvalues indicate the amount of variance captured by each principal component. In the fifth step, the top k eigenvectors associated with the highest eigenvalue are selected, where k is the desired dimensionality of reduced subspace. The sixth step is the original data x is projected onto the k selected eigenvectors, resulting in a new set of data points in the lower dimensional subspace. Then the last step is to obtain the projected points in low dimension. The final step is to visualize or work with projected data points in the lower dimensional subspace, which captures the most important patterns and structure of original high dimensional data. In this way, we complete the process of PCA and yeah.
To summarize everything, principal component analysis is an effective method that helps to make large dataset easier to understand by identifying the most significant patterns or trends within data. It involves transforming the data into a new coordinate system in which a smaller set of features known as principal components capture the majority of the changes. The key steps involved in PCA are: first, we start with the original data matrix X, where each column represents an observation. Second, then we calculate the covariance matrix Cx of the data, which quantifies the relationships and redundancies between different measurements. Third, perform eigenvalues and decomposition on the covariance matrix Cx to find its eigenvectors and eigenvalues. Fourth, choose a transformation matrix P such that its rows are the eigenvectors of Cx sorted in descending order of their corresponding eigenvalues. Fifth, transform the data into a new space y is equals to px, where the covariance matrix Cy becomes diagonal with diagonal elements representing the variances along each principal component. The principal component are the new orthogonal axes that captures the maximum variance in the data, with the first principal component capturing the large variance, the second capturing the second largest variance, and so on. By retaining only the most significant principal component, PCA can effectively reduce the dimensionality of the data while preserving the essential information.